George Stephanopoulos, seated with his signature practiced smile, had done 1,000 interviews before, but this one was different. Clint Eastwood, the 94-year-old icon of American cinema, entered the Good Morning America set with a slow, deliberate stride. He wore a plain charcoal blazer, no tie, and that unmistakable steely gaze that had captivated audiences for decades. The segment was billed as a light conversation about his latest film project, a surprise directorial effort in the Western genre. But behind the scenes, producers whispered of a special twist to liven up the morning ratings. It started innocently enough. George complimented Clint's stamina, his longevity in a grueling industry. Clint, in his dry, minimal tone, shrugged it off. "I just get up every morning and do the job." The audience chuckled, but then came the pivot. Stephanopoulos narrowed his eyes slightly and asked, "In your latest film, there's a strong message about justice and personal responsibility. Would you say that reflects your views on the current state of American politics?" Eastwood blinked once. "I make movies, George, not speeches." Stephanopoulos leaned in. "But surely, as someone who's spoken at conventions before, you must have thoughts. Many are saying your film criticizes recent progressive movements. Was that intentional?" The atmosphere shifted. Eastwood tilted his head, lips tightening just a bit. "Are you asking about the film or trying to bait me into a soundbite?" George chuckled, attempting to ease the tension. "Just asking what the viewers want to know." Eastwood didn't smile. "Viewers want stories, not lectures." Then came the question that snapped the thread. "Would you support someone like Donald Trump again, given how outspoken you were in the past?" There was a pause, a long one. The audience, staff, even the camera crew seemed to freeze. "You know what's funny, George?" Clint said, voice gravel thick. "You invited me here to talk about storytelling, art, but you're more interested in turning this into a courtroom. I didn't come here to play politician. I came here to share my work. If you can't tell the difference, maybe you're in the wrong chair." The control room cut to a wide angle. George tried to respond, stammering something about journalistic responsibility, but Clint was already rising from his seat. He unplugged his mic himself. "Next time you want to corner someone, pick a kid who hasn't been doing this for 70 years. With that, Eastwood walked off set, his back straight, jaw clenched, leaving George blinking into the camera like a man just sideswiped by a freight train. The fallout was immediate. Backstage, chaos reigned. Producers scrambled, unsure whether to cut to commercial or double down. George Stephanopoulos sat stunned in his chair, the color drained from his face, his earpiece crackling with frantic voices. Moments later, he forced a smile and pivoted awkwardly to the next segment, but the damage was done. Clint Eastwood had walked off Good Morning America Live, and the world had seen it. Clint, meanwhile, exited the studio without looking back. His longtime assistant, Marlene, was already waiting with the car. Cameras swarmed, but he ignored them, sliding into the back seat and closing the door with the same calm finality he brought to every role. Inside the car, he finally exhaled, shaking his head. "Thought it was gonna be about the movie," he muttered. Marlene glanced at him through the rearview mirror. They never learn. By noon, every major outlet was dissecting the exchange. Political commentators weighed in, celebrities tweeted their support or disapproval, and even fellow directors were chiming in. Some praised Clint for standing his ground and refusing to be turned into a headline. Others accused him of dodging important questions. But none could deny what had just happened. A veteran actor had walked into a media trap and diffused it on live television, not with outrage, but with stone-cold grace. That evening, Clint's phone buzzed with dozens of missed calls, most of which he ignored. But one message caught his eye, a text from Martin Scorsese. Classic Eastwood. Hell of a moment. He allowed himself a rare smile. Elsewhere, the producers of Good Morning America were in damage control mode. George was defensive, insisting the questions had been fair. But leaked emails suggested otherwise. One note, sent the night before the segment, read, "If Eastwood bites, we've got tomorrow's headlines." When that surfaced, public sympathy shifted swiftly. It was no longer about Eastwood's politics or the content of his film, it was about integrity. The audience saw the ambush for what it was. And they admired that, at nearly a century old, Clint still refused to play by someone else's rules. 2 days later, Clint released a statement through his publicist. It was short and simple. "When I sit down to talk about my work, that's what I expect to discuss. I won't apologize for walking away from something dishonest." The next morning, Good Morning America ratings plummeted. Viewers voiced their frustration, many saying they had lost trust in the show. George Stephanopoulos didn't appear on air for the rest of the week. Rumors circulated about internal meetings and reprimands, though nothing was confirmed. Meanwhile, Eastwood's film, previously flying under the radar, shot to the top of the charts. Pre-sales skyrocketed, with people flooding theaters just to support the man who stood up for authenticity. At a quiet diner on the edge of Carmel, Clint sat sipping black coffee, unnoticed by most. A young man approached hesitantly. "Mr. Eastwood, I saw what happened on TV. Just wanted to say, thank you. You don't see people stand their ground like that anymore." Clint looked up, nodding once. "That's 'cause most folks forget who they are when the cameras roll." He turned back to his coffee. No fuss, no spotlight, just the same man he always was, direct, unapologetic, and utterly unshaken. The media had tried to write the narrative, but Clint Eastwood had written his own. Again. 3 days after the now infamous interview, a new wave of controversy erupted. A behind-the-scenes video, secretly recorded by a crew member on their phone, leaked online. In it, Stephanopoulos could be seen laughing with producers just moments before Clint walked on set. One producer whispered, "If he storms out, we win the internet." George nodded, smirking, "Let's see how tough Dirty Harry really is." That short clip, less than 20 seconds long, reignited a wildfire that had barely begun to die down. By midday, #Team Clint and #BoycottGMA were trending worldwide. Fans, celebrities, and even news anchors from rival networks weighed in. The public sentiment shifted dramatically. What had first been seen as a tense interview now looked like a calculated ambush. A hit job, and Clint Eastwood, whether you agreed with his politics or not, had become the symbol of unflinching dignity in the face of media manipulation. In a rare move, the network's top brass released a statement expressing deep regret over how the segment was handled, but stopped short of issuing a formal apology. Stephanopoulos remained silent, reportedly on a personal leave of absence, though multiple reports suggested it wasn't voluntary. Sponsors began pulling advertising from the program, citing audience backlash and loss of trust. In the world of morning TV, that was equivalent to a death sentence. Meanwhile, Clint remained silent, until he didn't. That Friday night, he made a surprise appearance at the closing gala of the Telluride Film Festival. No red carpet, no handlers. Just Clint in a black shirt and jeans, walking into a packed auditorium as the crowd slowly realized who had just entered. A standing ovation erupted, spontaneous and thunderous. Clint took the stage, motioning modestly for silence. "I'm not here to settle scores," he said simply. "I'm here for stories, and for all the folks out there tired of being told what to think, keep telling your own." He didn't mention the show. He didn't need to. What followed was a screening of his latest film, Dust and Valor, a stripped-down western about an aging sheriff fighting corruption in a modern border town. The parallels were impossible to ignore. By the time the credits rolled, half the theater was in tears. The other half sat in stunned silence. The film wasn't just good, it was haunting, timely, and deeply personal. Critics who had expected another nostalgic ride were now writing words like masterpiece, rebuke, and final reckoning. One review read, "Eastwood didn't just walk off a show. He walked straight into the hearts of a country desperate for someone who doesn't flinch." By Sunday, Dust and Valor broke limited release records. Distributors rushed to expand its release nationwide. People who hadn't gone to the theater in years stood in lines just to buy tickets. In interviews, audiences weren't just praising the film, they were quoting Clint's now iconic line, "If you can't tell the difference, maybe you're in the wrong chair." And yet, through all the chaos and celebration, Clint remained unchanged. No interviews, no statements, no gloating, just one photo surfaced that week, a quiet image of him walking alone on a beach near his California home, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the horizon. He wasn't chasing the moment. The moment had come to him. The media had tried to provoke a headline. Clint Eastwood gave them a legacy. The clip went viral before the segment even finished airing. Twitter exploded. Clips circulated with captions like, "Eastwood schools the media," and "Clint shuts it down." Some called it disrespectful, others hailed it as legendary. Whatever the case, it was clear. No one would forget that morning, and Clint Eastwood had just reminded the world that legends don't take ambushes lightly.